Cleopatra 2-ounce silver round. Created at the Elemental Mint, this is the first release of the Egyptian God series. It contains 2 troy ounces of 3/9 fine silver. It has a reeded edge and is a high-relief proof with incused engravings. On the obverse you will find the high-relief image of Cleopatra, Queen and Pharaoh of Egypt, sitting on a lounge chaise. Around this figure you will find the incused Egyptian symbols, including the cartouche of Cleopatra bearing her lineage name, the Eye of Horus, and in high relief a bowl of figs. The reverse contains the seated image of Isis in the foreground with wings spread. In the background you'll find the image of a pyramid, and further back a wall of hieroglyphics. Located at the bottom center you will find the inscriptions 2 ounce, 999, and the atomic symbol for silver, Ag. Here are some interesting facts you may or may not know about this famous Egyptian queen. Cleopatra was not Egyptian. While Cleopatra was born in Alexandria, Egypt, she is really of Greek origin, and the child of one of Alexander the Great's generals, Ptolemy, who acquired control of Egypt after Alexander the Great's death in 323 BC. Despite not being ethically Egyptian, Cleopatra embraced many of her country's ancient customs and was appointed the Queen and Pharaoh of Egypt between 51 and 30 BC. She was the product of incest. Like much of the royalty of that time, dynasties often married within families to preserve the purity of their bloodline. More than a dozen of Cleopatra's ancestors were intermarried cousins or siblings, and it's likely that her own parents were brother and sister. Cleopatra's beauty wasn't her biggest asset. Although history has romanticized Cleopatra as a stunning goddess of beauty, it is believed that she was more renowned for her intellect, pleasing voice, and demeanor, which was what made her so desirable. It wasn't so much her physical appearance. She spoke as many as a dozen languages and was educated in mathematics, philosophy, and astronomy. If you look at the ancient sculptures representing her, or even the coins with her portrait, she doesn't exactly look that hot. But who am I to judge what beauty was in 30 BC? She had a hand in the deaths of 3 of her siblings. Her first sibling/husband, Ptolemy XIII, ran her out of Egypt after she tried to take sole possession of the throne. So, Cleopatra proceeded to influence Julius Caesar to help her regain the throne, and in those efforts, her brother Ptolemy drowned in the Nile River after being defeated in battle. Following the war, Cleopatra remarried to her younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, but she is believed to have had him murdered in a bid to make her son the co-ruler in 41 BC. She also engineered the execution of her sister, Arsinoe, who she considered a rival to the throne. Cleopatra knew how to make an entrance. Cleopatra portrayed herself as a living goddess, specifically the goddess Isis, and often used clever theatrics to impress political allies and solidify her image as a deity. One famous example occurred during a period when she and her brother were battling for power, and Julius Caesar arrived in Alexandria to mediate the conflict. Cleo knew her brother would block her to meet with the Roman leader, so she had herself wrapped in a carpet and smuggled into his personal quarters. The plan was successful, and she quickly turned the mighty Julius Caesar into her ally and lover. Another example of her ability to impress occurred in 41 BC when she was summoned to meet for the first time Mark Antony, who was then part of a 3-person ruling body of the Roman Empire. It is said that she arrived on a golden barge adorned with purple sails and rowed by oars made of silver. She was all dolled up to look like the goddess Aphrodite, and she sat beneath a gold-gilded canopy while attendants dressed as Cupid fanned her while burning sweet-smelling incense. Can you picture that? Needless to say, Antony fell for it hook, line, and sinker. But in his defense, who wouldn't? Cleopatra and Mark Antony formed their own drinking club. Cleopatra needed Mark Antony to protect her position of power and maintain Egypt's independence, while Antony needed the riches and the resources of Egypt to fund his battles. Independent of this fact, these lovers enjoyed having a good time and created their own drinking society, where this select group engaged in nightly feasts and wine binges, and members occasionally took part in elaborate games and contests. One of Antony's and Cleopatra's favorite activities involved wandering the streets of Alexandria in disguise and playing pranks on its residents. She led a fleet in a naval battle. Due to the Cleo-Antony relationship, which created a huge scandal in Rome, the Roman Senate declared war on Cleopatra. During the famous naval battle of Actium, Cleopatra personally led several dozen Egyptian warships into battle alongside Antony's fleet. When Cleo saw that they were no match for the Roman navy, she abandoned the battle with her forces, leaving Antony to fend for himself. When Antony realized what she had done, he also withdrew and followed her back to Egypt. Cleopatra may not have died from an asp bite. The way the story goes, Cleo knew that Antony would be mad at her for betraying him by abandoning him during the naval battle, so when she returned to Alexandria, she locked herself in a monument with 2 handmaidens and sent word to Antony that she was dead. When Antony heard of this news, he was so devastated that he drove his own sword into his stomach so that he could be with her in the afterlife. The problem is, he didn't do a very good job. The stomach wound was not immediately fatal, and he even stopped bleeding. In his agony, he begged anyone to finish the deed. When Cleo heard of this, she sent a messenger with instructions to bring him to her. Now, knowing that she was indeed alive, he agreed to see her. She refused to open the door, but tossed ropes out a window, and she and her handmaidens hauled him up into the monument. Once he got there, seeing his condition, Cleo freaked out. She ripped off her clothes and covered him with them, then began raving and crying and beating her chest and even started self-mutilating her own body. Antony told her to calm down and asked for a glass of wine. Upon finishing it, he died. When the Roman army finally broke into the monument, they found Cleo dead, with one handmaiden dying at her feet, and the other adjusting the crown on her head just before she collapsed to her death. The legend goes that the cause of death was by a poisonous snake bite from an asp. Later historians more accurately believe that the true probable cause of death for all 3 was the ingestion of a poisonous concoction of hemlock, wolfsbane, and opium. But you have to admit, the asp bite is much more dramatic and makes for a better story, right? What really took place, no one will ever really know. My opinion on the Cleopatra 2-ounce silver round. This is a fascinating piece of silver art. It is a hefty 2 ounces of 3/9 pure silver. The obverse and reverse designs are well crafted with enough details to give the round a genuine feel of quality. The texture and contrast of depth between the high relief striking and the infused engraving really make this round jump out at you. The details and the reverse background behind the figure of Isis are very ornate and impressive. The second in the series, Anubis, has already been released, and I look forward to the 3rd release in the near future.